Welcome to Stroke Forward. My name is Marcia Moran. For the next 40 minutes or so, we are going to talk about things that stroke survivors, or any brain injury survivor, deals with. If you look at me today, you probably don't see a person who had a stroke, but I feel it. My body functions differently. Do I think I will get back to 100%? Yes, because to think differently is to admit defeat. We will talk to all sorts of people who have been there, from survivors to caretakers to doctors, nurses, therapists, friends, and family who have seen us at our weakest. They have cheered us with their victories, no matter how large or how small. How did we get here? That's what this show is going to tell you. Working in the community to change lives through the empowerment of individuals has been a lifetime work of Dr. Ethel Parris Gainer. She is a clinical social worker with over 20 years of experience working with children, adolescents, teens, and adults who have grappled with a range of complex challenges. Her experience includes individual and group therapy for such issues as anger management, grief and bereavement, postpartum adjustment, parenting challenges, trauma, relationships, anxiety, and depression. A native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Dr. Parris Gainer has also been active as a community organizer, building collaborations through Pittsburgh and surrounding communities. As a consultant, she is a grant writer and grant reviewer, mental health counselor, tutor, and public relations consultant. Dr. Parris Gainer relocated to Richmond, Virginia in 2007, where she continued her private practice and community work. Armed with an abundance of faith and community-based learning, she accepted her calling into the ministry and began to prepare to serve in the ministry. She was ordained in 2007. She has a Master's of Divinity from Pittsburgh Theological Seminary and Doctor of Divinity from Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology. She earned her Master of Social Work and Master of Education, both from the University of Pittsburgh. In 2013, she was appointed by the governor to serve on the Virginia Board of People with Disabilities, and in 2017 was appointed to its executive committee. She is the co-founder of a mission ministry in Senegal, West Africa. She is the founder of Divine Destiny Disability Ministry, which has the mission to work with the African American Church and community to promote disability awareness, education, and training. She is married to Pastor Preston Gainer, the mother to Lamar and Cody, and has two grandsons, Carter and Camden. I am delighted to introduce Ethel Parris Gainer. How are you doing, Ethel?
I'm doing wonderful, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're quite welcome. So what happened to you the day you had your stroke?
The day of the stroke, I just moved to Richmond, Virginia on April 1st, 2007. And so on the 21st, so I moved here for a new job, working at a church. So I was staying at an extended stay, one of those hotels. And during that day, I'd been looking for housing, went to work, felt fine. Didn't feel like, I was sick or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I was here alone. My husband had went back to Pittsburgh, which is my hometown. And that night I woke up and had some weakness on my right side. And so I thought, oh, it's nothing, just a little tiredness, busy day, a lot going on. And I didn't respond quickly. I didn't respond fast. Went back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I woke up again and it had gotten worse. Called my brother, who's a nurse, who lives in Newport News. He said, Ethel, call 911 immediately, get to the hospital. Called 911. I didn't know the address where I was staying. I didn't know where I was at. I didn't know anything going on. And that's when I found out that I had a minor stroke.
Okay.
It did leave me with weakness on the right side, right hand, limited movement, and walking with a cane because of weakness in my leg.
Okay. So, how did it affect your family?
Um, I think it affected me more than them. I know my husband, it really affected him. He was like, why is this happening to her? She's, working in the ministry, came down to Richmond for a job in ministry, good person. Why is it happening to her? The
Hmm.
why question.
Right.
And for me, it was total shame. I didn't want anybody to see me. I didn't want to go home. I didn't go home for several years after the stroke because I didn't want to see anybody
Hmm.
and didn't want to see any old, of my old friends or anything. So it was a lot of shame in my how I was walking, how I looked, and just trying to get over that
Hmm.
and deal with that.
Okay.
But they were very supportive. My husband very supportive and son. Um, saw my sisters and other family members, they were supportive. I do have one cousin here, she's been very supportive. So they just encouraged me. Nobody kind of held me back and said, you can't do this or can't do that.
Hmm.
Actually, I went back to work on the job. And so my husband was like, you have to go, you have to learn how to drive because I can't drive you around to appointments. I cannot drive you, where you need to go. You need to go to work. You need your insurance so that I can have therapy, So it's like I needed to go to work because we talked about just relocating back to Pittsburgh. And I said, no, I had just found a place for us to live here. Let's just, write it out, see what happens. And so we decided to stay here. I love it here in Richmond, Virginia, which is where we relocated to. It's close to the beach, close to Williamsburg, nice little resort places to go to. And, I like it here.
Yeah. What did you do to recover?
So, recovery is an ongoing process, I think, for people who
Hmm.
have any kind of disability. You just have to stay with the recovery process, which includes, keeping your mind positive that you can do the things that you did before. You might just have to do them differently. So for me, going to the gym was important to strengthen my legs, strengthen my arms, so I could be able to function as best that I could. Learning how to drive. I mean, not learning how to drive, but getting behind the wheel again and feeling confident in driving. At first, it was difficult. I didn't want to drive. My husband said, you got to get behind this wheel and drive. And so when he took me to the parking lot, he got out of the car. He said, I'm not going to ride in that car with you. So we laugh about that all the time. But, he did get back in the car. I drove in the parking lot and I took baby steps. I tell people all the time, take baby steps. I would only drive to a corner store, drugstore at first. And then I would drive, 2 blocks. And then I drive 3 blocks. I get out the
Hmm.
car once, and then maybe I'll get out the car twice. Now, some days I get out the car 3 times, in a day going into the stores. But take baby steps and do what makes you feel comfortable. Um, so going to the gym, working on my body and going to physical therapy as much as I can go that my insurance will allow.
Hmm.
My faith is very important. So I think that was a big part too. And yeah, so those are the two things. Exercising, staying positive,
Hmm.
and just moving, getting out the house.
Interesting. I
Hmm.
I found that your book was fascinating. I actually read it.
Thank you. Awesome.
And I'm going to quote you. No matter when the word disability enters a person's life, it causes a major life adjustment for the newly disabled person to maintain their identity to be the person they were prior to the
Mhm.
disability. So, does that mean you think a person can get back to what they were, or is it they become a new person?
Um, I think having the disability definitely changed me
Hmm.
because it changed me to be an advocate for something that I knew nothing about disability
Hmm.
and to start a ministry and even to go back to school, having a disability, going back to get my doctorate in ministry, um, which is what this book is basically about, the research that I did about people with disabilities going to not feeling welcome, churches not being accessible, both physically and mentally for people with disabilities. Um, so it offered me the opportunity to do research that I would not have done or been even interested in doing, even though
Hmm.
I'm a mental health therapist. So that is a form of disability, a little different than having a physical disability.
Yeah.
So it did change me. I had to change the way I think about everything I do. And I think about where I'm going. Is it accessible? How am I going to be treated when I go into a place? So I think it does make you a different person, but you can overcome and be the best person that you could be, not giving up, but realizing that despite the disability, I can, continue to move forward. And I think I wrote that in part because after I had the disability, I didn't have time to sit back and feel sorry for myself.
Hmm.
Within a month or two, I was back at work. I didn't have time to really take in, this new person that I am, a different person, because I am different. I have to think differently about everything I do, where I'm going. If I'm going to take an air flight, I need to understand, get the assistance that I might need and not feeling ashamed to ask for help.
Hmm.
A lot of times, initially, as a stroke survivor, I didn't want anybody to help me. I want to do everything by myself. But it's okay to get help if you need it.
Hmm. Yes, it is.
Hmm.
How has what you do changed the perspective on the words disability and church?
Yes. It's made me realize that the church, uh, a lot of denominations, not all of them, because some of them are have stepped up to the plate and are inviting, accessible, and being intentional about the services that they're providing to people with disabilities. Some denominations are not. They don't have handicap ramps to get in. They don't have disability um, accessible bathrooms. Um, they don't utilize people with disabilities in the ministry. You're just kind of like, there sitting on the sideline. And because um, I am in ministry, that was very important for me to understand what churches are doing because I wanted to continue working in ministry.
Hmm.
And so that's why I did the research on it and also because there are a lot of people who are not going to church because churches are not accessible. They're not feeling comfortable going. People are looking at them differently because they don't understand it either. So it's
Hmm.
a two-way thing.
Hmm. Okay. I'm going to quote you again. As the number of individuals with mental and physical disabilities continue to grow in this minority group, and you were talking about African Americans at that time, what is the responsibility of the church?
Yes. I think the church has a responsibility to go into all nations. And as I did this research, I saw that there were over 54 million people at that time who had disabilities in the United States. So that's like a nation. And the church is called to go into the nations to make disciples, to be caring and loving to people with to all people. And so it's a people group that I feel that has been neglected.
Hmm.
They're not going to church because they don't have accessible access, um, transportation. They're not going to church because the churches are not easily accessible or friendly. And
Hmm.
then parents with children with disabilities are definitely, I've talked to many parents who are not going to churches because they don't have, the children may have autism and they're making noises or sounds and, during the service, and they're not welcome. I had a parent tell me that she was told by the pastor by the church, not to come back, because they don't have the ministries to work with the children. So there are some churches that have ministries and respite programs to work with families and parents who have children and individuals who have disabilities. And more churches need to be aware of that. And, there's just another ministry that's needed.
Interesting. So, talk about the psychological, physical, and spiritual challenges associated with being disabled.
That's a mouthful, but that's such a it's such an awesome question. And I could tell you from my own experience, it's a daily mental health, physical, mental, emotional struggle. Getting dressed, being able to get dressed on my own, being determined to do that. It can be discouraging. And I know I had started to fall into a pit of despair until I was watching a program with Joni Erickson Tada, who was a quadriplegic. She became disabled at the age of a teenager, and through a diving accident, she dove into some shallow water, and it just ruined her body. She became a quadriplegic, and she was on a show talking to a gentleman um, who was also disabled, no legs, no arms, and they're both talking about the ministry that they're doing. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. And his name is Nick Buchek. And he was talking about how he was going all over the world, all over the country, talking to kids about bullying. Since that time, he's gotten married, he has children. I mean, his life is just going on. And she was talking about how she was discouraged. I have her books on my shelf. How she was discouraged in, but she wanted to. She's an artist. She's a writer. She does beautiful artwork using the paintbrush in her mouth and doing the paintings. It's just beautifully amazing, the artwork that she does. And I had the opportunity to go to her ministry in California. She was having a disability awareness conference to teach people how to do these kind of workshops in your community. And so that was really encouraging for me to go to fly to California. The first thing I did, I hadn't been anywhere since my stroke. And the first place I go was flying to California, and I didn't know a thing about the fact that airports have assistance. So I had to learn all of that. So there's so much available to people with disabilities. You have to just do the research, advocate for yourself, speak up for yourself. So I had to do that for myself, but going to the conference just opened my mind because I saw so many different people there with all kinds of disabilities, physical, no limbs, hearing impaired, visual impairments, all kind of disabilities. So that made me really more interested in joining other organizations that were promoting disability awareness and advocacy. But the physical is a challenge. It's a daily challenge. The mental can be a challenge, but it can be overcome if you're doing other things. And I'm thankful, and I like the title of your show, Going Back to Work, because I was able to go back to work and to help people who have disabilities, physical, mental health disabilities, and some people that I've seen have physical disabilities. So I think that I'm hoping that them seeing me pushing forward helps them overcome and move forward despite their disability.
Yeah. So, what would be the one thing that you would tell our listeners who have their own brain injuries?
Yes. Um, I would tell them that you're not alone.
Hmm.
There is resources, there's support for you. Most cities, hospitals have monthly support groups that you can link up with and participate. There's an organization that does a stroke camp every year. Um, you can look that up, stroke camp. They go around and do these stroke camps, and they're just a wonderful time for the stroke survivors, but as well as a good time for the caregivers, kind of like a
Hmm.
respite for them because they have nurses and everybody there to help us. And I'm like, I'm so used to doing everything by myself, but they say, well, I'm here to help you, Ethel, during this weekend. You
Hmm.
could just relax and let us wait on you, pamper you, and massage our hands, but give us back massages, being out in the woods, singing camp songs, just a good time to, forget about what you're going through and just enjoy other people.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you have an email address or some other way people can get a hold of you?
Yes. My email is em as in Mary, P as in Paul, Gainer at AOL.com. And my website is parisgainer.com.
Okay. So, I would like to thank you for being with me today. It's been really interesting, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And I'm so happy that I found you and just decided to reach out to you. And thankful for you.
Thank you for listening to Stroke Forward podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like it on Facebook, LinkedIn, or anywhere else you heard it. If you want a copy of Just Say Yes to Life, please order it from Amazon.com. The proceeds go to Stroke Awareness Oregon, an amazing nonprofit that educates about stroke causes, prevention, and treatment options. The book, Stroke Forward, is also available on Amazon.com.